Hello everyone. Right now I'm talking about Samuel Mohn's new book Humane, which looks at how America shifted from chasing peace to redefining war. The idea here is to break down what Mohn claims piece by piece. Then I'll go into what critiques have said. Some agree, others push back hard. After laying out their views, I'll share my take. Could trying to make war better humane actually keep it going forever? Let's begin. Samuel Mohn says the U.S. now leans on something he labels humane war, a way of fighting relying on exact weapons, rules checked by courts, along with moral codes meant to spare non-combatants. On the surface, it seems like things are getting better morally. Drone strikes harm fewer innocent people, judges embedded in the military okay attack spots, while citizens hear more talk about following global regulations. But for Mohn, this is exactly the problem. He argues that the turn toward humane war has made war easier to sustain politically, less visible, and more permanent. Instead of questioning whether the United States should be fighting the global military campaigns at all, Americans have become more satisfied with the idea that war can be waged cleanly and responsibly. This change, he explains, pulls more focus away from the bigger goal, ending wars or at least cutting them way down, instead of real steps forward. It gives a fake sense of movement, trapping America in a never-ending fight against terror that just keeps going without any finish line. Several key points to support this argument. First, he explains that throughout the 20th century, anti-war movements focused on ending war, but beginning in the Vietnam era, reformers gradually shifted toward regulating war instead. The result is a strong human rights community that works on reducing the brutality of war, but is less involved in opposing war as a policy choice. Mohn also says U.S. officials lacked precise weapons since they fit America's global aims. This way, troops can strike far-off targets without losing many lives or facing anger back home. Third, he claims that the legal and technological transformation of war has sanitized it. Drones, special forces, and targeted strikes make war feel distant and bloodless, and therefore easier to justify. Mohn points out that calling a war humane isn't always positive. Protecting non-combatants matters, yet this focus might quietly justify endless conflict instead of stopping it. Turn to the major critiques from the assigned sources. Daniel Bessner, writing in the New Republic, actually agrees with much of Mohn's argument. He argues that precision warfare has turned war into a permanent, low-cost administrative project, and he warns that humanizing war can normalize the constant projection of American power. His critique is that Mohn understates how deeply militarism is embedded in the U.S. foreign policy. From the Tocqueville 21 Forum, several scholars argue that Mohn oversimplifies. They say humane war did not cause endless war, rather political choices, the war on terror, and post 9/11 fear did. Some say kind wars might just show deeper issues. Maybe they're not the problem itself. Dexter Filkin writes in the New Yorker from another viewpoint. He says, zeroing in on kinder war misses how exact tech actually cuts down harm. Filkin suggests that civilian protection is morally meaningful even if it does not stop war altogether. In his view, the choice is not between humane war and no war. Often the choice is between humane war and brutal war. John Fabian Witt's review on just security as nuance, Witt acknowledges Mohn's concern that law has made war easier to justify, but says Mohn underestimates how important legal constraints are in preventing abuses. He argued that you can just advocate for peace while also advocating for humane conduct. The two goals are not mutually exclusive. Do these critiques weaken Mohn's argument? In some ways, yes, and in other ways, no. Filkins and Witt make a strong point that humanitarian improvements are real and morally valuable. It would be hard to argue that reducing civilian deaths is unimportant. Mohn sometimes seems to downplay this, but other critics, especially Bessner, reinforce Mohn's core claim that humane war has removed the political pressure to stop war. If the U.S. can wage warfare from drones thousands of miles away with minimum casualties and little public attention, then war becomes nearly invisible. This supports Mohn's fear that humane war can expand the scope and duration of conflict. The key debate is not whether humane war is good or bad. It is whether humane war helps reduce violence long term or whether it creates a political environment that allows war to continue indefinitely. In my view, Moan's argument is persuasive. I do think treating war less harshly matters morally. Non-combatants should stay safe while better tech might lower harm in real terms. Still, I reckon Moan spots a real risk. When war feels tidier or more accurate, leaders might lean heavier on force rather than talks. Government choices shift when the battle looks less messy. The public pays less attention. Congress debates war powers less seriously, and the war becomes a permanent background condition. So my position is that humane war and anti-war politics must coexist. We should absolutely push for civilian protection, but we must also question why the U.S. continues to fight open-ended conflicts across the globe. Humane war cannot become a substitute for broader debate about when or why force is used. In conclusion, Moan's Humane raises an important challenge to how we think about modern warfare. While reducing suffering inside war is morally necessary, it cannot replace efforts to limit war itself. The critiques of Moan help highlight the complexity of this issue, but ultimately his warning remains powerful. War cannot simply be improved. It must be questioned, constrained, and at times rejected. Thank you for listening.